Okay, no. So racism asserts that someone has intrinsic superiority or inferiority based on their biological classification. Now, notice that. Notice how general that definition is. It says that racism is intrinsic superiority, or, and if you know anything about logic, the term or could mean one or the other, or even both. So we have to analyze this definition on the basis of the term being isolated intrinsic superiority or even inferiority, and then also collectively under the whole guise of biological classification. Now, we need to understand biological classification is something that came much later in human history, way late, because the term racism is rooted in that biological classification that came during the 18th and 19th century. Everyone knows that by now. Racism did not exist in the same way that it existed during colonial European expansion. It just didn't. Moreover, when we talk about racism, notice how ambiguous the term racism is. It's very ambiguous. It's to the point where you can call anything racism if you use the term in any context. It's like saying, for example, love. If I use the term love, if I said I love my wife, or I said I love my daughter, or I love my son, notice there are, even if I added to that and I love my mom, notice the variation of the people that I'm addressing. I'm addressing my mom, my wife, and my children. All of those types of love are different and they're expressed differently. So we have to approach terms like racism in the same way. We can't call all racism the same thing. They're not all grouped together, which is what people have tried to do with the term slavery. You can't do that with slavery either, because chattel slavery, you can't. It's a different branch of slavery. It's not servitude. No one would argue that chattel slavery was servitude. I mean, that's ridiculous. So saying that all forms of slavery are equivalent or logically equivalent is asinine. Just in the same way, logically, saying all terms like racism, or excuse me, all forms of racism are logically equivalent. Now, what does this definition mean? It claims that one race is inherently better in worth, intelligence, or humanity. Now, again, this type of thinking it essentially originated. I'm going to say, I can't say originated because then someone will attack me. Then I'll have to defend my position. But what I mean by originated, I mean like we probably saw similitudes of it all throughout humanity, but then it reached its climax in colonial America. Okay, so the claim that one race is inherently better in worth, intelligence, and when we get into the conversation of intelligence, they like to bring up IQ. Well, as a university professor, I can go into the IQ rhetoric. Most of the people who claim, "Oh, your IQ is this," those people can't tell you what type of assessment we use to measure someone's IQ. My wife, who is a SPED teacher, uses IQ assessments in the SPED domain. Me, I've been in general education for years. We don't use IQ exams. They're redundant in general ed. They're only used in ungeneral ed. And that's not a shame on the SPED community by any stretch, because we have a high respect for our community, um, whether they have documentation or not. But here again, racism is on the basis of their worth, their intelligence, or their humanity, which is something that they're accusing us of. So we want to look at it from their vantage point to see if they have a basis of argument against us. Are the Israelites racist?